Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Polymath Project. I'm your host, Arman. Today is April 26th, 2018, and it is finally starting to feel like spring here in Jersey City. Hope you're enjoying your spring and the beginning of a new season. I just came back from a 2-week journey to the East. I was in Dubai for a conference. Took my family, so I had a little bit of personal time as well and time for reflection. And that happens, right, when you take a journey halfway across the world and see an entirely different culture and get to observe different ways of life. It's a great time to reflect and kind of compare and contrast their way of life with how we live here. Now, as for myself, I was born and raised here. I've lived essentially my whole life, although I've traveled quite a bit, been essentially to all corners of the globe on different trips. I've essentially always lived and been rooted here in the East Coast, here in the Northeast. I would say within probably a 25 to 30 mile radius, I've lived my entire life, 44 years. So again, the imagination starts going when you move to new places or travel to places to consider what would a way of life be and what's better and worse about our societies and things of that nature. So Dubai I found to be a very interesting city, and it really prompted me to think about the main theme of what we'll be discussing today, which is the quote-unquote American dream. Why is this country the one that immigrants travel to from far and wide, came from all around the world for years, are still coming and trying to get in to a point where we're potentially becoming overpopulated and starting to consider immigration laws and limiting the amount of people we're allowed to come in. And what's the main reason people always came? To pursue this dream. Is that dream still alive? Is it still a reality? And to what extent does similar concept exist in other parts of the world? For example, in Dubai, which is a fascinating place, they're obviously building like crazy. People are coming from all over the Middle East. And it has got that same kind of feeling that you'd have in places in cities like New York, where people just want to come, they want to explore. There's tremendous amount of opportunity at all levels of strata, from kind of construction and labor all the way up to kind of the business and the tech sector. I was actually there for a blockchain conference on behalf of Kidcoin, one of the companies that I'm involved closely with, and I was very impressed to see the government of Dubai embracing this new technology. Unlike some governments, hint, hint, in the US, I feel like we're struggling with that concept a lot more and really taking the wrong approach and a much too restrictive approach, which is ultimately pushing entrepreneurs and thought leaders to form their businesses and concentrate on other more open markets. And Dubai being one of those that's being very open, very much embracing blockchain as a cutting-edge technology, very much open to cryptocurrencies, and they've made very public statements and commitments to moving major government functions administratively, financially, public records, and otherwise onto the blockchain within this year, and they've got like a 2020 roadmap there as well. So I found that to be refreshing. In a couple weeks, I'll be out in Cayman Islands for a similar conference to hear about how Cayman is strategizing and structuring around blockchain. But let's get back to this American dream, right? And let's take a toll on how that's played out, because I think it depends on who you talk to, obviously. There's a lot of great success stories of people that have come here with nothing as immigrants, got their education, got opportunities on a certain career track, and have been able to really build up either by starting their own company or working through the corporate path and do really well, establish a livelihood, support their families, in a relatively safe place, and fulfill some component of that American dream. Because what is it? It's being able to provide for their families, live a longer than average life, and hopefully have some level of work-life balance where we're able to actually enjoy what it is we work so hard for. But I think if we look at the overall metrics, there's definitely some question marks and there's some cracks in the system that have showed up probably more so over the last 20, 30 years. And to another extent, may have always been there. Because for every success story we hear, it's kind of like a pyramid. A few people make it to the top, and we see them on the cover of magazines, and the ones that we celebrate that have kind of made it. And along the way, through the normal natural forces of competition, for everyone that's made it, there's 50, 80, 90 that faltered somewhere along the path. People that got sick, worked too hard, got heart attacks, high blood pressure, felt disappointed, felt depressed, fell into some kind of addictions, alcoholism, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much pressure and so much tension in this kind of system that kind of propagates the American dream, keeping up with the Joneses and the kind of consumerism that has resulted, that I feel like to some extent culturally as a whole we've at least here in the US and in New York, which is one of the headquarters of the American dream, have kind of lost ourselves somewhere along the way. And I think that it's taken a toll. It's taken a toll on families. It's taken a toll on the way we choose to go about taking care of our health by taking pills and things that aren't necessarily natural just to support our crazy, busy, hectic lifestyle. Kids from a young age starting to take medicines and things for things like ADD because our education systems have broken down, and our parenting values and systems have kind of been challenged because you have families where everyone's working around the clock, and who's really watching after the kids and trying to impart some kind of structure and value system for them. So we've kind of lost the concept of nuclear families. I'm not saying we have to go back to that, so to speak, but in other parts of the world, it still carries on that way, where you have multiple family members, right? It takes a village, to raise a child, to raise a family. And the social support structures and systems that seem to exist, and I do believe exist in certain communities, even whether it's the States or somewhere else, we have communities that have retained something of what we might call an old school value structure. And there seems to be a lot of great logic and wisdom in that we've kind of shifted away from in pursuit of a much more, I guess, dynamic and mobile approach. A new job in a new city, maybe away from our family, but it's a great opportunity. Let's go take it, move the family out to another town, and that's certainly exciting and certainly opens up certain doors, maybe financially and career-wise, but what happens to the structure that we might have had in place before? So I'm not here to pass judgment. I think it's fantastic that we have different societies and kind of open systems where people, all of us, can make choices. But within those choices we make, we can't deny the fact that there's a cultural programming and influence that comes from somewhere else, from what we see in the media, what we read in the news, how our laws are structured to kind of incentivize, motivate, guide, and to some extent possibly manipulate how we perceive success and how we end up making decisions for ourselves and for our families. And I think within the construct of the American dream, to a large extent, I believe we've been misguided and manipulated, and yet the opportunity still remains for us to kind of free ourselves from illusions and delusions and try to find a place of reality and make sure we're making choices that are truly to our own best interest and that are healthy, that are balanced. It's very hard to live a balanced life and establish a lifestyle that makes sense for us in an environment that's encouraging and motivating and showing us another picture of what success and balance looks like. And that's where I believe the challenge lies, or a big part of the challenge. And there's obviously major groups of people that have said similar things and seen this and come up with concepts to help us gain some awareness, gain some consciousness on these issues, and make sure we don't get swept away and caught up in a value system that doesn't really align with what our true inner purpose might be and what a good lifestyle is for us. Along those lines, I really love this concept we're seeing in various cities. In New York, there's a place called Assemblage, which is similar to WeWork. It's like a co-working and co-living space, but it has a very holistic approach. You can join and have a shared desk, or just come there for after-hours programming. They actually have cultural programming, educational programming, workshops during the day and after hours. They have different types of meditations that are available. Again, this is in the workplace, right? In a crowded city like New York, but it feels like you're in a lounge. And there's the juice bar and coffee bar downstairs, and you can share or rent conference rooms. You could bring your team in for a retreat. So it's kind of trying to address that work mentality and what the end result is when we don't have balance in our lives, and kind of give us an opportunity to have productivity, but do so in an environment that supports and nurtures different parts of ourselves. So I had a couple meetings there with other folks that had spaces, and I found it to be very refreshing, very nice, and very much a sign of hope going forward, as this kind of pendulum swings between different extremes, but to try to triangulate that pendulum and arrive at a place that's sensible, and something that hopefully governments and larger institutions can start supporting. Because when the government comes up with a law that encourages, let's say, business owners to offer better work-life balance or benefits to their staff, that's something that business owners can actually pay attention to and actually benefit from. It's something we should want to do anyway. As a business owner myself, I want to see the staff that I work with, my colleagues, feeling good. Get a workout during the middle of the day. Take a nap if you need it. That's why we have a policy in our agency, in our Venture Builder B Labs, where people can work from home at least 2 days a week, if that's where they feel productive and comfortable, and perhaps they don't have to be up at 6 a.m. every day to get to the office by 8 or 9 just so they can churn out some tasks. So I believe we need to bring some humanity to the American dream, or let's just call it the dream in general, because whether it's the Dubai dream or the American dream or whatever place you look at, that's another aspect of being in the tech industry, and especially blockchain, where we're looking at globalism in a sense, right? Through mobile and through the internet, we're globally connected now more than ever. So we're getting exposure and insight into different pockets of entrepreneurship and innovation around the world. And it's really the same thing that we've talked about in the American dream. Innovation, entrepreneurialism, that kind of energy is exciting. It's invigorating. And when people are into something and really want to make a change, they're willing to go the extra mile, and they're feeling good about it. And that's what I'm seeing by traveling the world now at these different conferences. It's really the same dream, for everybody. Everyone's looking to make a difference, make a change, invent something new, make the world better in some way, and find their niche, achieve something, feel good about, their path, find their purpose. And to me, that's what the dream, is, that at its purest aspect. And we just need to bring and keep and maintain and infuse a level of humanity and balance and a holistic kind of concept to support those dreams and the dreamers. So that's why it's great to see entrepreneurial communities developing, or great to see new industries like blockchain and cryptocurrency, where so much excitement and entrepreneurship is starting to happen. And you would like to hope, and what we are seeing is the communities, the cities, the countries that are supporting that kind of innovation, the way the United States did at its outset, to say, this is the land of opportunity, and to brand itself that way, and to open its doors hardworking immigrants or whoever wanted to kind of come in, roll up their sleeves, and explore this vast, continent and new world. That's what we did here. And that's why we had so much entrepreneurship and amazing technology and innovation that was conceived here. And so that's starting to happen and has always happened to some degree, but I feel like it's starting to balance out and open up across the world. And as we like to talk about here on the Polymath, it's those innovators, those thought leaders, those people that are risk takers. That adventurous spirit is really what drives us going from these mental ideas to the materialization of truly groundbreaking change. And I'm feeling a very strong wave of that happening right now. It's not just about the web, it's not just about the digital side of things, but the digital world, we cannot deny it, is now infused and integrated into everything virtually. The mobile connectedness, the way that tools like blockchain are starting to enable and empower the unbanked, as we say, over 2 billion people in the world that don't have identification, that don't have bank accounts because they can't qualify or they don't have the criteria that maybe a traditional bank might look for, can actually get online and can actually buy things, using their mobile device and some tool, some app and technology. And there's a number of them out there right now, and more will be coming. And this is hopeful. This is positive for the world, and getting that lower bracket, that segment of the world that doesn't have the same access that the rest do for whatever reason. They were born into a tough situation, or they're in a country that fell upon hardship or war. And most of these wars start over the fight for resources, limited resources, and people having limited opportunity, limited access. So I do believe we have to focus on that, solving problems and coming up with global solutions that really address that segment of the population, which is global, but there's definitely pockets that are stronger in certain parts of the world. And the rest of us, and the other parts of the world that have more opportunity or have had greater fortune, certainly have to be, they don't have to take charge or be the leaders in that, but they just have to make sure to be open, generous, and supportive, so that this kind of globalization that's happened through technology, through mobile, through blockchain, and other leading edge innovations can be given the freedom and the space to be shared and be spread. And that's the global dream, So I think we're becoming closer. We're becoming more connected, and that's certainly a focus that I would like to see more of us get on board with. And it's not about whether you're from New York or you're American or you're European. That kind of separates us when we identify ourselves first as where are you from, what's your background, what's your ethnicity, instead of starting with the global human dream and the human connectedness that we have, and realizing, as I travel and see an entrepreneur in New York versus Hong Kong versus South America is the same human being. They've got the same drives and motivations and qualities. So we're all connected in ways that are beyond the color of our skin or the language we speak, and it's something deeper. And so I want to kind of challenge us and urge us and give my support to the human dream, the global dream. And as a great friend of mine, David Houle talks about in his book, The Spaceship Earth, we're all crew. We're all passengers and crew on the spaceship Earth. It is one planet, in a vast galaxy and universe. Strongly believe there's other life forms out there, and one day we'll make those connections as well, and we'll focus on the universal dream. For now, I think just expanding from the American dream to a regional dream to the global dream, where we're all interconnected, supporting one another, taking a holistic approach, and working to share opportunity, share the fruits of this planet with one another and for those in need, and to uplift one another, through education, which is one of my big focuses with Kidcoin, of building a world where there's financial literacy and access to resources for everybody, starting with every child, which obviously represents our future. But to support those children, again, it takes a village. We need the parents, we need the educators, we need the governments, we need the businesses from those regions where those children are, as well as other regions that may have more fortune and more resources, to collectively unite in support of this kind of mission that we have at Kidcoin, at least, of building global financial literacy that gives every child an opportunity to make their way out of whatever their birth situation is and childhood situation is into a global opportunity where they can pursue their dreams, where they could pursue the global dream, the human dream. So that's our challenge. My challenge to you on this day is to think about what the global dream, the human dream, means to you, and think about one concrete, specific way that you can support that in a way that kind of takes you outside of your box of your specific personal goals or the goals that you might have for your family, which are completely valid and completely something you should pursue and achieve. But let's go beyond that. So at whatever level you've thought about it, for your community even, go to the next level and think about how you can support the global dream and some other person or people that are outside of your specific community and current circle of connections and interest, and just do something that takes you a bit outside of that comfort zone and that community. That's what I'll leave you with today, and that's what happens when you travel halfway around the world. It just opens up this kind of thinking. So that's another great opportunity. I'd invite anyone, if you haven't taken a trip or been outside of your state or outside of your country in the last 6 months or 12 months, try to find, hopefully an affordable, economical way to do that, whether it's getting on a cruise or taking a short trip, going to a conference or a retreat somewhere. It really does refresh, revitalize, and open the mind. So I will leave you with that, the global dream. Let's do it together. Take care.